So, today we're going to tackle one of the most fundamental ideas in workplace safety, the hierarchy of controls. But listen, this isn't just about some pyramid you saw in a textbook. This is a life-saving decision framework. And really understanding it, well, it can be the difference between a safe workday and a tragedy that never should have happened. Let's dive in. Yeah, that right there, that really gets to the heart of it. The stakes are just incredibly high. These terrible incidents often happen not because nobody knew about the danger, but because the wrong solution was chosen. The hierarchy of controls, that's our roadmap to making sure we make the right call. And here it is, that familiar inverted pyramid. It's a system that ranks our safeguards from the most effective, right up at the top, to the least effective, all the way down at the bottom. The logic is actually pretty simple. It is always, always better to get rid of a hazard completely than it is to just try and protect people from it. We've got 5 levels here: elimination, substitution, engineering controls, administrative controls, and finally, personal protective equipment, PPE. Let's break them down one by one. All right, we're starting at the top with the most powerful strategies you can use. This is all about what we call prevention through design. Basically, tackling hazards right at the source, long before they ever get a chance to become a threat. Elimination. This is the gold standard of safety, no question. It asks a really simple question. Can we just get rid of this hazard completely? Because you know what? The absolute safest hazard is the one that doesn't exist anymore. Think about it. Instead of sending a person into a super dangerous confined space for an inspection, can we figure out another way to do it? That's elimination. And technology is making elimination more possible now than ever before. Take industrial inspections in confined spaces. That's a historically deadly job, but a company like General Electric, for example, now uses a remote-controlled robot to check out their ductwork. And the result? They have completely eliminated the confined space risk. Plus, they slashed the labor from over 400 hours down to just 24. That's a huge win. Okay, so if you just can't eliminate the hazard, the next best thing is to substitute it. This just means swapping out a dangerous chemical or a risky process for a safer one. But, and this is a big but, you have to be really careful here not to create what's called a regrettable substitution. Like replacing a toxic solvent with a less toxic one that just happens to be highly flammable. Well, you might just be trading one deadly hazard for another. This table shows some fantastic real-world examples. Look at this, switching from toxic solvents to water-based cleaners in car plants. Huge! Same thing with getting rid of lead-based paint in construction. And for unstable scaffolding, the substitution is simply using a better, safer option like an aerial lift. These aren't just tiny tweaks, they fundamentally change the job and make it safer. So far, we've talked about the ideal scenarios, getting rid of hazards or replacing them. But what if that's just not possible? Well, the next level of defense is to physically separate people from the danger. This is where engineering comes in, but it's also where the human element starts to make things a lot more complicated. Engineering controls are physical changes that put a barrier between people and hazards. Think of things like machine guards, good ventilation systems that suck fumes away, or just simple guardrails. Their biggest advantage is that they work whether you're paying attention or not. A guardrail protects you, period. That's what makes these controls so reliable, in theory. And this leads us to a really critical question. If we have all these amazing physical safeguards, why on earth do accidents still happen? Well, the answer isn't usually in the engineering itself, it's in us. It's in our behavior. Here's the tough reality. Engineering controls fail when people find ways around them. A worker might remove a guard to clear a jam faster. A supervisor, under pressure to hit targets, might encourage shortcuts. Without a strong safety culture where everyone from the very top to the front line truly prioritizes safety, even the best designed systems can become totally useless. And this right here is the crucial point of this whole discussion. Safety isn't just about installing the right hardware, it's a system. It's where technology, training, and culture all have to work together. And engineering control is only as strong as the organization's commitment to actually using it correctly. So, this brings us down to the bottom 2 levels of the hierarchy. These are the ones that rely almost entirely on people doing the right thing every single time without fail. Administrative controls are all about changing the way people work. This is stuff like safety training, warning signs, rotating jobs to limit exposure, and really critical procedures like permit-to-work systems for high-risk jobs. All of this is essential, but notice, they don't actually remove the hazard. And right there, that's their fatal flaw. They rely 100% on every single worker following the rules perfectly, every time, even when they're tired or distracted or under pressure. And that, of course, makes them far less reliable than the controls that are physically built into the workplace. And then, way down at the very bottom, we finally get to PPE. Hard hats, gloves, respirators. It's absolutely vital, don't get me wrong, but it should always be the last resort. And why is that? Because PPE doesn't fix the problem. It just provides a final and very fallible barrier. If that equipment fails, or if it's worn incorrectly, or if someone just forgets to use it, that worker is completely exposed. So if the hierarchy is so logical, so clear, why do so many organizations seem to start at the bottom with PPE and work their way up? Let's talk about the real-world challenges that get in the way. Look, implementing these higher-level controls isn't always easy. The upfront costs can seem really high. Sometimes a company just doesn't have the in-house expertise. And honestly, sometimes the biggest barrier is just that phrase, "but we've always done it this way." These are the real-world hurdles that often lead to a dangerous over-reliance on the weakest controls.
So how do we actually do this the right way? Well, it's a strict, disciplined process. You start at the top and you do not move down a level until you've completely exhausted the one you're on. Always ask first, can we eliminate it? No? Okay, then can we substitute it? Only after that do you move on to engineering controls, followed by administrative procedures, with PPE as the absolute final line of defense.
All right, let's wrap all of this up into one final, powerful takeaway. The key thing to remember is that safety is a system, not a single solution. The best protected workplaces don't just pick one thing. They layer multiple controls together. They might install a great ventilation system, then support it with training and procedures, and then provide PPE as a final backup. And most importantly, all of this has to be built on a strong safety culture, where everyone from the CEO to the newest person on the line is actively involved and feels safe to speak up. Understanding the hierarchy of controls is a massive step. But if you want to dive even deeper into real-world safety strategies, OSHA standards, and other life-saving knowledge, make sure you subscribe to HSE Study. Thanks for watching.